32 whaling ships sailed into the Arctic ice in 1871. None of the captains knew what was coming. By autumn, 200 men faced a choice: stay with the sinking fleet or walk across frozen ocean to survive. The decision to hunt in the Arctic was rational at the time. Whale oil-powered lamps across America and Europe. A single successful voyage could net a captain $50,000, more wealth than most men would see in a lifetime. The Arctic held whales no one else could reach. Competition was brutal, margins were thin, and the pressure to push further north, hunt longer, and ignore warning signs was immense. By June 1871, the captains had made their choice. A fleet of 32 vessels, American whalers, most from New Bedford, Massachusetts, set sail for the Beaufort Sea. They knew the Arctic was dangerous. Ice could trap ships, storms could sink them. But they also knew the season was short. Hunt now or lose the year's profit. The fleet pushed north into waters where ice was already forming. For weeks the hunt went well. Whale after whale was killed, processed, and rendered into barrels of oil. The men worked 18-hour days in brutal conditions. The captains saw profits materializing. No one yet understood they'd made a fatal error in reading the ice patterns that year. August arrived. The ice was thickening faster than usual. Captains began sending signals between ships, worried conversations about whether to retreat south. But retreat meant abandoning the hunt. Retreat meant smaller profits. Retreat meant admitting the season was over when there might be another week of good hunting. The captains held their positions. Then in mid-August, the ice began to move, not slowly, fast. Massive pressure ridges formed as pack ice compressed from north and south. The ocean itself seemed to be closing its fist. Within hours, the 32 ships found themselves trapped. Hulls creaked under the weight. Captains watched helplessly as the ice began crushing their vessels like eggshells. One ship went down first, then another. The men scrambled to salvage what they could: food, water, blankets, navigation equipment. Panic spread through the fleet. The captains faced a new decision, and this one had no good answer: stay with the sinking ships and hope rescue came, or abandon the fleet and walk south across the ice toward open water and distant land. The captains didn't know if rescue was even possible. The nearest whaling station was hundreds of miles away. No telegraph could reach them. No one on shore knew they were in trouble yet. The decision they made in those hours would determine who lived and who died. Captain George Pollard Jr., a veteran of Arctic whaling, made the call: abandon the ships, march south. It was a gamble. 1,200 men, most of them sailors with no experience walking across ice in Arctic conditions, would attempt an overland journey with limited supplies and no guarantee of success. By late August, the evacuation began. The men loaded small boats and sleds with whatever supplies remained. They rationed food at a quarter-pound of hardtack per day per man. Temperatures were dropping. Snow had begun to fall. They were marching into an Arctic autumn with winter approaching fast. The first week was the worst. Men who'd never walked on ice fell constantly. Their boots froze. Frostbite set in within days. Some men simply couldn't continue. The captains had to make impossible choices about who could be carried and who had to be left behind. The mathematics of survival were brutal and unforgiving. By early September, they reached Wainwright Inlet, an Inupiaq settlement on the coast. The locals had supplies, food, shelter. The captains negotiated hard for what they could trade and barter. Some men stayed there to recover. Others pushed on toward the whaling station at Point Barrow, still 70 miles south. The final march to Point Barrow took 3 more weeks. Men died along the way, not all from cold, but from exhaustion, malnutrition, and the simple fact that their bodies gave out. By late September, the survivors stumbled into the whaling station. Of 1,200 men who'd abandoned the ice, 200 made it. 116 had perished. Back in New Bedford, the news reached the newspapers in October. 32 ships lost, 116 men dead. Thousands of barrels of whale oil abandoned in the Arctic. The financial loss was catastrophic, estimated at over $2 million in today's currency. But the human cost was what people remembered. The captains faced no legal consequences. They made rational decisions under pressure with the information available to them at the time. The Arctic had simply been faster, colder, and more ruthless than anyone had calculated. The disaster became a turning point. Insurance costs for Arctic whaling skyrocketed, and fewer ships ventured north in the years that followed. The wrecks of those 32 ships still lie beneath the Arctic ice and permafrost. Some have been discovered by modern researchers. Most remain lost, silent monuments to a decision made in August 1871, the choice to push further north when every instinct should have warned them to turn back. What makes this disaster resonate isn't just the scale of the loss, it's the clarity of the decision-making chain. Rational men, facing real economic pressure, calculated risk in the moment and got the calculation wrong. The Arctic didn't break the rules, the men simply underestimated the cost of being mistaken. Subscribe so you don't miss the next shipwreck story. Every one of these disasters teaches us how quickly the ocean changes the rules.